And so I think people will begin to start joining us in a few minutes. So I'd like to get us started. First of all, I'd like to say welcome to you all. And I think you'll get really good information out of tonight's workshop. The two presenters that are with me, Tracy Watts-Serino and Karen Cross-Hatton, are pros, and they've done this and they do an excellent job. So I'm really thrilled to have them with us tonight. And so I'm just going to turn it right over to Karen, and we'll get started right away. And I'm going to go have a glass of wine. Not really.
All right, Bob. Well, we're not going to turn it over to me just yet because you have a few things that you want to say about SCORE.
Okay. Didn't realize I was saying anything about SCORE. I knew you had the slides. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I do want to say some things about SCORE. I think it's important for you to understand what SCORE has and what our availability is. Our mission is to foster vibrant small business communities through mentoring and education. So just like the workshop that we've got here tonight, and we do about 120 workshops a year. And those are all based on various business topics that our clients tell us they need to work on, and people in the groups that we work with want to hear. So we put those together. We do probably 2 to 3 a week, and I'd love for you to join us. If you go to score.org and then a /Cleveland, you will be able to get onto our homepage and then take a look at the workshops that we offer throughout the year. And we generally offer them in various stages of business planning. So startup, growing and scaling, and up to and including even selling of businesses at the end of the business life. So those are all things that we will work on with you. So you all know that the small businesses that are out there drive the economy. So that's really important. And that's one of the reasons why SCORE is as involved as we are. So we're the largest network of free volunteer small business mentors. And I mentioned workshops, but probably the bread and butter of what we do is actually mentoring, one-on-one mentoring sessions, sometimes 2, and sometimes we'll actually put together a board of advisors where we will work with a small company that is in need of very specific help, sometimes meeting with them on a monthly or quarterly basis, or sometimes even annually or semi-annually. But we might put 3 or 4 people together on this board. It might be somebody that is, let's say, a financial person, might be somebody that's a marketing person, might be somebody that is on the production side that can help out our small businesses. And we will meet with them and go through the various aspects of what goes on in their business and kind of give them the kind of help that they want and need to do that. So if you go on to the next slide, you can see that, again, if you go to our website, we do work with everybody. SCORE is for everybody. We empower entrepreneurs to succeed. It's free and it's unlimited. We're a service arm or service partner of the Small Business Administration, the SBA. So we have good ties into them. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that financing is an important aspect of their business, and that's a good reason to be friendly with the SBA, so to speak. So I'm now going to turn it over to Karen, and Karen is going to take you through the first of a series, culture and leadership. Karen, thanks.
Very good. Thank you so much, Bob. And welcome, everybody. What an exciting time. We are starting the series. We have some brand new content. And we're just excited to begin talking about what we call some of the softer skills in terms of what leaders need to know as you begin to build your business, either right where you are or you're building it on the side. But we want to talk about those things that aren't talked about as much. There's a lot of training on funding and on structure and various other parts of the business, but some of the very foundational parts that are the softer pieces that we don't really think about as much are very rarely covered. So tonight we're going to start the series and we're going to start talking about culture and leadership. So this is what tonight's agenda looks like very loosely. We're going to have a discussion of culture. We're going to talk about leadership. we're going to put it all together and talk about culture and leadership as partners. And then we're going to talk about what next steps you may want to take as leaders, right from where you are. So, meeting tonight's facilitators. I am Karen Cross Hatton. I have been with SCORE since September, October of 2021. I am not currently a mentor because I do work full time, but I am a budding entrepreneur just like many of you. I am the owner and operator of Legacy Builders Coaching and Consulting. And I help small business leaders in terms of team building, in terms of culture and leadership building, and those sorts of things. And so this is kind of my jam. My wing woman co-host here is Tracy. And Tracy, you go ahead and tell everybody about yourself.
Hello, Karen. Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be your wing woman anytime. I'm so excited to be a part of the SCORE workshop. I am just a facilitator like that. This is kind of what I do all the time. I am a 5-time international bestselling author. I have a podcast in the top 5% of podcasts called Beyond Common Business Secrets. So I am just a growth strategist. I'm one of those people that always sees the little pieces that you need in your business. And SCORE asked me to come in and help out with this workshop series because it's my passion. I think soft skills are money skills. And in business, we need cash revenue to stay alive. So I'm just here to, share my experience. I've failed a lot, so I have a lot of experience with what not to do. And that's what takes us over the hump to success and winning, right? Like that's what marathons are all about. So just happy to be here and support Karen today. Oh, Karen, you're muted, my love.
I know, and my PowerPoint has gotten away from me already. So hold on to your seats, folks. This is going to be a long night. Okay. Thank you so much, Tracy. I appreciate you. So before we just jump into having our conversation about company culture and organizational culture, I want for you to put in the chat, a little bit, just kind of introduce yourselves where you can. Your name, what the name of your business is or the company you work for, and what you kind of brought you to this series. What are you looking to get out of this session or the series in general, because we just want to have a little bit of an idea of who's in the room and what is needed so that we can make sure that as we go along in the series, or even just tonight, we can address as much as we can with your various concerns and kind of tailor make it for you just a bit. So I'm going to give it just a second so folks have a little bit of time to respond in the chat. Oh, Zenobian. Hi, Zenobian. Oh, I know Zenobian. Very good. Glad that you could join us. Vahid, I hope I'm saying that correct, right? And you run a construction company. Very good. Very good. Home accents, nice. Design throw pillows, looking to wholesale them, very nice. Okay. A variety of skills in the room. Okay, a dog park bar, and our staff currently needs a culture reset. Very good. Where everyone can work together and get along. Fantastic. And you know what, Lisa, thank you so much for putting that out there, because you know what? Part of the solution is knowing the problem, right? And being able to see that there's a little something going on and I might need a little bit of help. So fantastic. All right, real estate and craft business. Oh, fantastic. So you have 2 businesses going on, Shaquita? Okay, well, you have your hands full. And it sounds like very different, but I want to learn more about this dog parking bar. That sounds really fascinating, but we're going to just go ahead and jump right in. I don't want to keep us too long. Fantastic. So let's jump in and get started. Thank you so much for throwing your information in there. And so we kind of know who's in the room and a little bit about what is being looked at. You offer custom design through seamless manufacturing process in fashion, wellness, and home decor industry. Very nice. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. I love that elevator speech. Fantastic. All right, we're going to jump in here. And, certainly as we move along, Tracy's going to be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and she will stop me and let me know that we have folks that have something to say. So we're going to talk a little bit about company culture and what that really looks like, right? So a company culture is a set of attitudes, values, beliefs, goals, and other characteristics that a company or organization follows to create a gratifying working environment. Okay, so let's unpack that just a little bit. And I know we're just at the beginning, but we want to talk about that a little more, because I think that there's some key words there. A gratifying working environment. Tell me a little bit about what the culture of your company is in the chat, right now. How does it feel? And just waiting, giving a little time for responses, because many of you are owners of your own company. What do you think the culture is as it stands today? And when you consider all these things, the attitudes, values, beliefs, goals, and the characteristics. Love doing astrology, but have trouble marketing. What is the current state of your? Yes, thank you, Tracy. Have trouble marketing. Gotcha. Now, Tracy is a marketing guru. That is her jam. I am not as much the marketing person, but we are going to also hear from Tracy more as we go along in the series. So, Tamara, I hope that you can join us throughout the series. Okay, so several of you have marketing issues. Okay, very good. Oh, thank you. Current state is tense. Okay, I would like more teamwork. Oh, fantastic. Okay, very good. Lisa, you are our truth teller in this series. I appreciate that. All right, and let's hope that we can get you a few tips. And if not tonight, we will continue on with the series. But just stay tuned. Okay, entrepreneur wearing different caps, but we do work based our core values, and yes, marketing is a challenge. Okay, fantastic. Well, you got some good folks here that can perhaps give you some help and direction on that. So let's move forward a little bit. So when we talk about organizational culture, we're talking about the organizational culture. It refers to, again, the company's mission, objectives, expectations, and values that guide its employees. So businesses with an organizational culture tend to be more successful than less structured companies, because they actually have systems in place that promote employee performance, productivity, and engagement. And so clearly, having a strong company culture motivates everyone to do their best work. But let's also understand that when we're talking about the organizational culture, that is something that is established. Where do you think? Where do you think that culture and the feel and the objectives and expectations, where do you feel like those things are established? Leadership, absolutely. Yes. Yes, and the mission and vision driven with values, focusing on strategic planning and transformation. Absolutely. That is a phenomenal answer. And it starts with the founders. Absolutely. So culture right, is dictated really by the leaders of the organization. And unfortunately, in a lot of organizations, it's top down, right? So whatever the attitude or the culture is, it is determined by the leader, and that's how everybody else rolls, right? And so to some extent, if you find that you're having some difficulties in, kind of how everyone gets along, the first question that you have to ask yourself is, what do we need to do differently? You know what I mean? And we're going to get into talking about some problem solving things and how you can get employees to bring you some solutions in parts 3 and 4 of this series, led by Tracy. So I definitely want you to stay tuned. But again, as you can see in my little diagram here, the culture is right at the center of everything you do, right? So it's the structure, you have your processes, and you have your people. And there should be some alignment in all of that, right? Your people need to understand the structure of the organization. They need to understand the processes that are in place that enable them to do the work that they need to do and to meet the expectations that you have for them. In doing that, you definitely want to make sure that your processes and your structure are in alignment with what you say the mission of your organization is, with what those objectives are. And you want to make sure that that's clear across the board. And you want to make sure that your employees have a good understanding of how to get there, how to meet those expectations, how to move forward. And, there needs to be those checks and balances in place. But again, we're going to move on a little bit and get a little more in depth, right? So, you may be thinking, why is company culture even important? Why are we even spending time talking about this, right? We're talking about this because here are 8 reasons why company culture is important. It increases employee engagement, right? It decreases, and this is a positive company culture, it can decrease turnover. It is steeped with a strong brand identity. So that means that people will understand and identify with your brand right away, right? Based on that culture, because it's not just about the employees and how you all feel, but it's about how you make the clients that you serve feel as well, right? You have elevated productivity. There is a transformational power in having a strong company culture. You have top performers that don't feel burned out, right? When you have a good company culture, they are the leaders in your organization, and they help you to get that vision carried out, to carry out the mission, right? To keep everyone engaged. It leads to effective onboarding because you're going to get people right as they're coming into the door, understanding what that culture looks like, what it feels like, what the expectations are, so they know right away. And oftentimes you even start that in the interview process, right? Because when you're interviewing folks, you want to make sure that you're doing some intentional hiring. You're not just hiring to get somebody in the space that you think might be able to do the job. But when you're hiring, that is your key opportunity to make sure that you are hiring folks that fit into the culture of your organization, right? And then it also fosters a healthy team environment. So I'm going to stop right there for just a moment, and I'm going to ask Tracy if she has anything that she'd like to add, or anything that she'd like to say kind of about those 8 important reasons.
Karen, I love this list so much. The thing is that if you don't set your culture, if you don't set it, someone else on your team will. So if it's your company and you are the leader, you need to set the culture. This cannot be outsourced, but culture will exist whether you set it or not. It can never be forgotten.
Fantastic. And you are right on point, Tracy. That's right. Because people are natural leaders. There are some in your organization that are natural leaders, and that people will follow. They will follow, and whatever they feel, and whether it is for the positive or the negative, as Tracy said, if you don't set that culture, that person will, and they will have, you know, a team going forward, yay, 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 or they will have a team saying, this is not what we signed up for, and we're not going to do this. And, you know, you'll have a whole nother thing on your hands. So yeah, that is very important to remember. Fantastic. All right, let's move forward one. Right?
Yeah, subcultures. Someone just
All
put in
right.
the chat. Exactly. You will get all these
Absolutely.
subcultures. Yep. It's
Yes.
important to lead the vision, right?
Absolutely. And the thing about subcultures is that they're going to exist no matter what your company culture is. Subcultures are going to exist because you will have folks that work the same shift or have the same values or have things in common, and they become their own little entity, if you will, within the culture. But you still, if that company culture is strong, and if there is vision, and if there is focus there, and if you are leading those charges, those subcultures won't even be an issue, right? They become just little places for folks to feel like they belong, right? So they become cultures of belonging as opposed to cultures that are fighting against the culture, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, it can be where the subcultures are another connection piece that leads to attracting a high value team. So, and these could be so exciting when the culture is strong and clear, just like you outlined. So I love when that happens, that it just adds layers of stuff the leader never thought of, but it's all working up the ladder of where you're guiding everyone to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so here are some ways that you can improve or enhance even your company culture. So if you're in a leadership position at work, you just follow some of these steps to ensure that your team achieves success in the workplace, right? You have to be a good communicator. And I know that sometimes we're like, well, what does that even mean, right? Because folks within the organization communicate differently. It's just like when folks say, well, go and study that. Well, who taught us how to study, right? So, you know, communicating well looks very differently in depending on your industry, depending on your style, but also depending on the folks that are around you. You have to know who's in your organization, right? You have to know who's in the workplace and how they communicate best, right? You have to listen to concerns and ideas, right? Because one thing that I say for clients is that we are learning partners, right? This may be my organization, or this may be my entity, my passion, but I can learn so much from others because we are all bringing with us the experiences of our life, right? And other jobs and other ventures. So we listen to the concerns and ideas, and we never know when something great and grand can come from that. You know, also you have to provide feedback, and the feedback cannot always be negative, right? It can't always, I'm sorry, just one second. It can't always be corrective. We have to make sure that we are giving positive as well as the negative feedback. We have to make sure that we are giving kudos to our people. We have to make sure that we are, if there is something that needs to be tweaked, that we're having those crucial conversations. And not all conversations have to be crucial. Some of them can just be conversations, and we want to find positive methods by which we provide that feedback, right? And we want to be consistent. We want to be consistent with everyone across the board. We want to be seen as fair, and because a lot of times people may not like what we do or what we say or how we go about it, but as long as we treat everyone consistently and there's no signs that we are favoring one group or one person over another, right? That can go a very, very long way. Tracy, anything you wanted to add?
The only thing I would add here is we often get in this headspace saying, oh, but that's common sense. And I share this everywhere. Sense is not common. It's just not, it's not common at all. We need to seek understanding. When you seek understanding instead of your need to be understood, communication opens up and it becomes a two-way flow. So the more you seek to understand where your team members, collaborators, leadership is all coming from, the more you will foster a culture of strong communication. That you're going to have disagreements, right? But it's really amazing when you can have a healthy debate where everyone is still respectful, but we're communicating effectively.
Absolutely. And you bring up a very important point. Not only is seek first to understand and then to be understood, one of the 7 habits of highly effective people that was put out there by Stephen Covey, but you also think about when you're in those situations that are oftentimes people are not necessarily as concerned about being right. They're also not as concerned about whether or not you agree with them. They just want to feel like you heard them and that you understood their perspective, right? So it doesn't always mean that they want you to agree. They just want to be heard and they want you to understand where they're coming from so that you all can have that discussion and everybody can kind of reach consensus. And sometimes that consensus will be, we're going to agree to disagree, but at least everybody felt heard.
Yeah,
And
it's really important to have a voice. Like when team members feel like they have a voice, that's when they really take ownership. And that's like a really beautiful thing when that comes together. The other thing I was just thinking is the praise piece. The newer generation coming in needs a whole lot of praise. So it's really important that we show up and speak in a language that our individual team members understand. So sometimes, it's a lot more praise than some of us have been used to. So you got to get a little uncomfortable. But I've never met anyone in the world that said, "Oh no, I'm too appreciated." So, right? Everybody enjoys it. We just don't often, give it. So it's just, you can always add a little more appreciation and praise.
Absolutely. And Kelly put a great method in the chat when she talks about the sandwich method of giving feedback. And you are 100% on course, Kelly. And if you are not familiar with the sandwich method, it's about starting that conversation off with something positive, really identifying some things that person does very, very well, right? If you see some areas of opportunity or some areas where there could be, some tweaking, that kind of goes in the middle. And then you end that conversation again with lifting somebody up with, reaffirming the positives that you've already said or adding on some new ones based on the conversation and how the flow of that is going. And, you sandwich that piece that maybe needs to be adjusted in the middle. But there are also other ways of giving feedback besides the sandwich method. And don't be afraid to do a 360 feedback, which means that you're giving feedback, but you're also getting feedback. And if you do that, folks feel like, okay, we are having, again, that two-way flow of conversation that Tracy talked about, but you also have to be prepared for what may come back your way, because you could think you're doing a fantastic, fabulous job, and you get the feedback that, not so much. Well, it's worth listening to. The feedback is worth listening to because that will make you better. Because my mom used to say, rest her soul, that reality is one thing, but perception is everything. So regardless to whether or not that is your reality, whether you feel like I am not this way, I did not do that, the way that people perceive you becomes your reality in the end, because that is how they will treat you. People treat you like you show up. And so if you're wondering why folks are, not showing up in the best way, sometimes we have to do a self-check. And sometimes we have to seek out that feedback as well. Okay, so let's move along, shall we? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about leadership. There's a formula to this thing, right? Leadership, as defined here, leadership is the art of motivating a group of people to act towards achieving a common goal. In a business setting, this means that directing workers and colleagues with a strategy to meet the company's needs. I love that this says leadership is an art, because it is, right? And we are our own masterpieces, right? So we get to be ourselves, but we want to make sure that we're doing that in a way that can motivate a group of people. Because back to Tracy's earlier comment, if you don't, somebody else will. Somebody who has a real command of their leadership style and understands their influence, and particularly that sphere of influence that they exist in within your organization, right? Tracy, did you have comments?
I have one of my favorite leadership gurus is John C. Maxwell. And he said he's the #1 leadership author on the planet. And he says all the time that great leaders are not born, they're like learned and created. So I love that what you said, how this says leadership is the art, because
Yes.
it's so true. It's like at one point I just thought, I don't have, you know what I mean? Like, how do you become a great leader? Well, it is a process of work, right? It's a process of putting all the pieces together. No one is born a great leader. You start off with some natural raw talent,
Sure.
but it's how you put the pieces together, how you put the ingredients of the recipe that really, really births a great leader.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to just take a little pause about that right now to open it up to see if you have questions or comments or thoughts. Please put them in the chat. I want to know what you're thinking out there, how you're feeling. Because again, when we talk about leadership, and the thing of it is as you said, it's learning, but I want people to put whatever your comments, thoughts, questions in the chat. But while you're doing that, I'm just going to make this one comment, right? That leadership development is key. You have to be continually reading, working on your skills, right? You have to continually do things like this. Come and get some information for yourself. Know what's going on in your industry, right? Leadership can be a very personal journey. And you have to figure out who you want to be as a leadership, who you want to show up as a leader. You know what I mean? But you also have to make sure that you are in a place where your values, your skills, your leadership philosophy is alignment with your organizational and company culture, right? Because it's very difficult for you to lead in a space where you don't agree with the very core values and understanding of that company, right? And I say that, and this is kind of a out there example, but if I am a vegan, I am not going to take a job in a slaughterhouse. Right? Like that's just not happening. But so many times we get into positions and jobs where there is not that alignment and there's that constant battle, right? So you have to align yourself and your thoughts and your thinking and your leadership style, for the folks that are in that culture, but also you got to be true to that yourself as a leader about how much time should we allow for a leader to develop. Well, here's the thing. Leadership development is ongoing. It is a lifelong journey, right? Because who you are as a leader at 20 or 30 is very different than the leader you are with more experience and understanding and, what have you under your belt, right? But you also have to understand that leadership intentionally developed. It doesn't just happen. Like, yes, I may get more mature, or the folks on my team may get more mature as they get older and they have more experiences, but you have to make some intentional effort at really grooming leaders and grooming yourself as a leader, so that you all are constantly in front of some type of development. You're having folks come in, you're sending folks out. Yes, you have to just remember that, right? So the building of a leader never stops. You should always be working on honing your skills, and so should the people within your organization, right? So let's talk a little bit about the difference between leadership and management, right? So just take a little look at my list here of things, because it is a very different thing, right? So leadership, it may or may not be a manager. Leadership, leaders must inspire followers. We said that, right? They emphasize innovation, new ideas, right? And different ways of doing things. They may be unconcerned with preserving existing structures, right? Because how often do new leaders come into an organization and the folks that have been there say, well, we always did it this way, or we always did it that way, or this is well, sometimes the ways in which you've done things may have been very good and gotten some results, but oftentimes they become archaic, especially as technology continues to grow and move. You have to be very much in touch with what's going on around you and what technology exists. And you can't always be married to the old ways of doing things, right? Leadership typically operates with relative independence. And it may be less concerned with interpersonal issues, okay? Management, on the other hand, it may or may not be a leader, right? The person that you put in front of others may not be the leader. Again, we talked about some folks that just are natural leaders that just show up and they are a part of your organization. And those are the folks that they're following, not the managers, particularly if there's no respect for that upper leadership, however that looks, that hierarchy, right? They may or may not inspire those under them, right? They are just managing a process, or they're just trying to make sure that the very bottom basic, duty is done, or product is made, or what have you. Management emphasizes rationality and control. You do it because I said so. We're going to do it this way because I said so, right? And this is the way that it makes sense to me. So this is the way that we're going to do it, because this is the way I understand it, right? They emphasize the rationality and control. They seek to work within preserved existing corporate structures, as opposed to having that level of innovation saying, well, maybe we can try it this way. That risk-taking value is not there, right? It's typically a link in the corporate chain of command. A manager just is saying, well, they told me I had to do this. They told me I had to say this. So, we just got to do what we got to do, right? They don't take any ownership of it. They are just a piece of a puzzle, just like everyone else. And they make you feel that, right? And they also may be more concerned with interpersonal issues. They're going to get caught up in the drama. They're going to get caught up in the things that really become more hurtful to the organization than helpful, right? So any thoughts around that from our audience or from you, Tracy? Any thoughts about those differences?
I would just add that the way that I always keep this solid in my brain is that a leader does not need a title. Anyone, it could be their first day starting out young in a company, they can become a leader. Management is you need managers, but management is to manage systems, processes. People really can't be managed. people can be inspired and empowered. So you kind of need both to come together. And oftentimes leaders will promote people that are leaders into management roles, and that is not congruent to what's going to grow the company to the next level. So be clear within your organization about the culture so that you're clear on, some people are really good managers, that they're going to manage systems and processes that makes their heart sing. I love those people. It's just not me. I'm here to lead and shake things up. So I think it's really important to have these front level conversations, because there are people that love those positions. And when we put them in the right seats, the whole company takes off.
Love that. Love that. Do we have anything in the chat, Tracy?
Yes.
Okay.
Kelly is talking about bullying and sexual harassment and things that come up with HR. So I think it's really important to touch on that from the leadership versus management piece.
Okay. All right. And so, Kelly, you are right. Those are issues that exist within workplaces. And it is very important to have processes in place for how folks are supposed to do that. The thing of it is that our leaders and our managers within the organization need the training on how to properly do that, right? Because at the end of the day, those folks represent you, your company, your brand. And if they don't handle those types of situations in the right way, it can end up costing you money, right? So it is very, very important that they have the right training and that they are trained on how to have those conversations, that where they're not making folks feel like victims or, or liars or brushing it off and under the rug. And there are lots of trainings, and some of that, is what we talk about and what we do. And, there are also SCORE mentors available that have subject matter expert in human resources that can help you work through, walk through, talk through some of those things. And SCORE is free for you. So just putting that out there. Tracy, did you want to add something or add anything else from the chat?
I just love that Kelly said in that whole thing that she wrote that the buck stops with me. It's true.
Yes.
So
yes.
as a leader, what you permit, you promote.
That's
so
right.
You must always understand that you can't turn a blind eye if something's going on. So there's a really great book it's called Crucial Conversations by Susan Scott. That's such a good one to enter into the conversation of, hey, I invite you in. We're going to, because sometimes you are going to have conversations that people don't want to hear. But to me, that's the real nice. When you tell the truth about what is expected of someone at the front end of being hired, even if it's not what, going to make them love you out of the gate, they will respect you and appreciate that you showed up and gave them honest feedback from the very beginning out of the gate. And that is going to build like the bonds of a very trusting relationship. And that we can work with HR so that we're not creating more red tape or more like silos to jump through, right? Like we have to bring real conversations into everyday life so that we're all on the same page.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, along those lines, I once worked with a leader in higher education who said, and his name is Dr. John Roosh, right? You have to inspect what you expect, right? So that means that if you're a leader, you have to also be present. You have to show up. You have to show your face. And it doesn't mean that you have to bog yourself down in the day-to-day things that you've hired other people to do, but you need to have report outs. You need to show up. You need to be on the premises. You need to know what's going on within your organization. And it doesn't mean micromanage. It just means be present so that people feel like you're here, like you care, like they can come to you, right? And that's kind of a part of the game as well. Okay. Anything else in the chat, Tracy?
I was just responding to some of the great things. So something that worked out really well for Irma, where she shadowed someone and they weren't the right person to shadow, but she did her thing and went to the next level. And then
Fantastic.
somebody else with leadership just led a forum. And then Kelly just posted a YouTube video that we'll check out after. So
fantastic.
Yeah, everyone's really contributing things of high value. So I want to thank you all.
Yes, thank you. Because again, we're learning partners here. If you have things that we don't have, please share that. This is the place to do that. And we can learn so much from each other. So let's move along. All right. So this is one of the things, this is a quote from Maya Angelou that I love so much because I think it sums leadership and relationships up so beautifully, right? I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that is so key because as a leader, it is about that feeling. We do have to be aware. We have to have a level of emotional intelligence, not just our own, right? We have to be in touch with our feelings and the things that bother us and the things that irk us. And we got to get that stuff under control, right? Before we get in front of our team. You know, we have to find ways to be emotionally intelligent for ourselves so that we can then not only recognize it in others that are on our team, but also be able to address others and be able to have some compassion and empathy for others and what they're going through. Because again, it's about that building that foundation of trust. Because without trust, you don't know what's going on in your organization or what you can even rely on folks to do. You have to be able to trust them and they have to be able to trust you, right? And, you know, I want to go back a little bit to Lisa's question about leadership and how long do you give folks? This is some information that was in a 2023 Gallup study on leadership development. What it is and why it matters is what it comes from. And it says leadership training is critical to organizational success, right? It can play a key role in the performance of leaders and managers. Each leader's capacity for success in their role is the result of natural talent combined with, again, intentional development. Too often, organizations ignore or underinvest in the intentional development of leaders and managers. And that is an issue, right? Just because a person works for you that is really good and really productive and does what you need them to do and they do it in a timely fashion does not necessarily mean that that person has the interpersonal skills to lead within your organization. And just because it's your organization, your brainchild, your baby, does not mean that you are fit to be the leader in that organization either. And that is a harsh truth that many folks don't get. You know, if you want to go in and you always want to be kind of the person walking down the hall, cranky and telling everyone, don't bring you any bad news, you know, a quote from The Wiz, you know, then you need somebody to balance that out, right? Or you need to hire someone that is capable of managing folks in an emotionally intelligent way. And you have to be honest with yourself because you will be impacting your own bottom line if you try to be the leader that you are not in your organization. And it takes a lot to turn those reins over to someone, right? It takes a lot to come to that realization that maybe I'm not that person. But if you're not confrontational, if you don't want to address things as they come up, if you're not sure, or you kind of go overboard when you're addressing things, you know, again, either you're going to go ahead and get that development, you're going to seek help on how to better have these conversations, how to better build your teams, or you need to get someone hired that can do those things for you? Tracy?
I just 1000% agree with all of that. Because you have to know yourself. There's a certain level of awareness, and you have to put your own personal feelings on the shelf just the way that you expect members of your team to do. So if you're not the best person for the role of leader to get to the next level, I forget who said it, but it's like, there's a quote that is, what got you here is not going to get you there. So at each level, you have to be open to that sort of 360-degree feedback all the time, because there are positions that are just not suited for you, but somebody else, you put them in that role, your company will take off. So it's just like, you have to put your ego on the shelf. That's a sign of a true leader.
Yeah. Fantastic. Any thoughts, comments, anything in the chat?
Three, visionary, not good at day-to-day CEO duties. Richard Branson always says CEO who can help do the job better than him. That's exactly it, right?
That's right.
Like, when you know yourself, that you hire. There's always, if you know that you want to just go off and create stuff, then by all means, hire those CEOs and build a brand as strong as Richard Branson.
That's right. That's right. And you have to be willing to be self-reflective. You cannot always be pointing the finger at your staff without having 3 more pointed back at you, right? So it's important for us to understand that as leaders and really get that feedback from our staff, really understand what our strengths and weaknesses are, what types of leaders we are. And so we have to do some intentional development, some intentional training around that. In that same study, Gallup made the following business case for executive or leadership coaching and development. Number 1, right? When employees strongly agree that they trust the leadership of their organization, they are 4 times as likely to be engaged. An engaged employee is invaluable because they are a part of this organization. They want to see you thrive. They want to see themselves thrive. They're like, let's go, right? When they're engaged. Employees who strongly agree that leaders help them see how changes made today will affect their organization in the future are 7.5 times as likely to feel connected to their company culture, right? You have to keep folks in the know. You have to give them information. You have to have a level of transparency that inspires that trust. Excuse me. And that's with the good news and the bad news, right? The good news and the bad news. When employees strongly agree that the leadership of their organization communicates effectively with the rest of the organization, they are 73% less likely to feel burned out at work, because they feel like everybody has the same information, the same understanding. And, you know, it becomes a way of looking at, okay, so how do we work together? How do we, what is my role in making us better and getting us to our bottom line, right? Everybody needs to understand their role and their place, and they need to know what's going on, right? 69% of employees who strongly agree that their leaders make them feel enthusiastic about the future are engaged. Only 1% of those who disagree with that statement are engaged. So these, you know, I share this information because I want you to understand, I'm not just making it up. Tracy isn't just making it up. Gallup is a leader for their research and the folks that they connect with, right? And this is the information they're bringing back. Let me bring up one concept that is not here just yet, but has anybody here ever heard of quiet quitting? I know you have, Tracy. In the chat, if you've heard about quiet quitting, please go ahead and put what you think that means in the chat. Okay, I see a lot of no's. I see a lot of no's. Okay. All right. Well, let me break it down for you just a bit, right? And you need to know this as leaders because you need to be able to identify it. And so I'm just going to touch on it very briefly. I'm not going to get into deep detail, but quiet quitting is when you have employees that are disengaged and they have made up their mind that they are not going to do any more than the very bare minimum in order to continue to earn their paycheck, but they are checked out. You are not going to get anything more from them. And on the back end, they may be looking at other opportunities. They may be looking at, doing something different. But trust me, at that point, they are disengaged and they're not going to volunteer for anything. If you ask them if they want to work extra hours or do anything extra, they're going to tell you no every time. They're not going to necessarily be out and complaining and, oh my gosh, I hate this place and la, 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 la. No. That's why they're quiet quitters, right? But there's also the concept of quiet firing. And quiet firing is what a lot of leaders do who don't want to address the behaviors or the attitudes or the things that are negatively going on within their organization. So what do? They start cutting back the hours that they give people. They don't address problems. They just take away hours. They change policies. They make things uncomfortable, right, for those employees. And then with the hopes that that employee will just quit, right? And both of those things are very dangerous to your organization. You invest a lot of time and money in training the people that are working for you. And so not having those conversations, not being in touch and in tune with your people, not knowing what's going on, not being able to recognize when A, you're quietly firing, or B, they're quietly quitting, is a major leadership stumbling block. Tracy.
It's like the dishonest way to me, right? Like sometimes it is difficult to have heavy conversations. However, you always feel so much better after you get that over with, right? So the more honest both parties can be, because it's like all these marketing statistics about how much more value keeping an existing client is than chasing a new one. It's 10x for keeping an engaged employee, which is who you're marketing yourself to, right? That's just another layer of who is connected to your vision and mission. So it's the same thing. Keeping people happily engaged and feeling like they're contributing to something much bigger than themselves is how we make an impact, right? First in our community, then, in our a few states over, and then you can go global. But it has to start first with the few people on your team, right? And then it expands. So the more you can stay honest about these type of difficult conversations. Nobody woke up today wanting to have these conversations. Like, can we just agree on that? However, when we have them, it allows so much more space and creativity to happen, which is the point of business, right? It's to serve, not just to collect a paycheck, right? For either party. So the more that we can do that, and then if we want to just answer the question that was in the chat a while back.
Okay.
It was about sales. Like someone said, same here, great at creating, not in selling. So if you're the owner, then you need to make friends with some amazing salespeople.
That's right.
So that they can buy into your vision and sell for you. Oftentimes they'll tell you in lots of leadership training, you have to figure it out how to sell. But there are things that maybe don't align with your heart and soul.
That's right.
Then you got to hire someone that's good at selling. But
that's right.
Someone has to be selling for you to have a business that's going to last for years to come.
That's right. And also I'm just going to take one other little pause and kind of deviate for a little bit. Let's talk about why not also be running your space from a strengths-based perspective, right? If you get to know the strengths of the people that you are hiring into your organization, because a lot of times we're looking at hiring a person for this one position in this one space, right? But they have all of this experience and they're very talented at doing something else. If we know nothing about the people that work for us, we don't even know how we could be missing such a great opportunity, right? We give them these tasks that maybe they're not so good at, as opposed to figuring out what they're really great at. Because when people do things that they're really great at, it helps to increase the morale. It helps to make them feel really good and motivated about doing it. And it doesn't make work feel like work, right? So if we build a team based on their strengths and have folks that can fill in the gaps, right? So that you have a complete team. There is so much more to leadership and to building your team than just that specific job that you're hiring somebody to do. You want people to be in the best fit situations that they can be. And then there's sometimes when you end up realizing that this isn't a fit for that person. And how do you manage that, or how do you manage them, becomes the question. So let's put it all together now, where we're talking about culture and leadership, right? Organizational leaders, right? And their company, and the culture, right? So the success of any business depends on its organizational culture, because number one, that's how everybody is operating. That's the sense of how you feel when you walk into that space, when you walk into that room, right? When you go into that organization, right? There are places and people and organizations that are doing the exact same things as you are. What is going to set you apart? It's going to be the culture. People will pay more where they are feeling valued than they will just because it's less expensive. They place value on the experience that they get, right? So the success, again, of any business depends on its organizational culture. With the right leadership, a positive organizational culture can spread throughout the workplace. Leaders need to be able to encourage a positive organizational culture in order to keep employees engaged, or motivated and engaged. Okay. All right. So this is just kind of like, what does that culture look like, right? Here are some things. These things equal culture, right? Culture equals behavior. It's about what is acceptable and what is not in this culture, right? It is about what is the accepted practice, because whatever the culture is, that's going to lead to the behavior that you're going to get, not just from the folks that are a part of the organization, but also the customers, how they are going to behave when they show up and what's acceptable, right? And again, we talked about subcultures. Exactly. Subcultures form through rewards, but subcultures also can form for things that they don't feel like are rewards, for penalizing them, or things that they feel are punitive, right? Culture is learned through interaction. You have to teach people how to treat you, your company, this organization, and you also have to be taught how to treat those folks, right? Culture is difficult to change, because once people are in a groove, right, it is very difficult for them to just change gears without there being some real intention and understanding and transparency and good communication behind that. And culture is negotiated. And, for me, I feel like, yes, this is the vision, this is the culture, this is where we are. But sometimes if you are listening to your employees, to your customers, there becomes a negotiation in that, right? because I want to show up as my very best and they want the very best from me. So sometimes I have to look at the culture. I have to look at the practices. I have to look at some of the things that that I have allowed to go on and do some real reevaluation of how I want to move forward. Okay, Tracy?
I love this photo so much about culture because it represents everything. And it's true, like culture is ever evolving. It's not static, right? So we can be adding to it or taking away. And you always have to course correct and check that everyone on the team is adding to the value. And if it's going too far off, that's not in alignment. The most shocking things that leaders do, they think they're testing the waters, trying, but when you are not congruent, you're saying one thing and your actions are doing another, that is when you start to erode trust instead of building. So the more that you can be open, but speak about, communicate, hey, we're testing this, or you're not doing things without eyes on you. So always you have to be communicating what you're thinking, what you're doing, where you're going, the mission and vision. You have to share it so much, and you'll get sick of hearing your own voice, but people need to hear it again. That's what's going to keep redefining culture, because it's not static. It's constantly evolving.
Yeah, fantastic. Any thoughts that anybody wants to share? Any questions that you have?
There was a question on the culture of selling.
Okay. What's the question?
Just says culture of selling ?
Okay. I'm not sure, whoever posted that question, could you just elaborate a little bit more about what you're talking about? Because there are cultures of a lot of things, right? There's a culture of confidence. There's a culture of clarity. There's a culture of, like, you have to decide, again, this is what we're talking about. What do you want that culture to look like? How do you want it to be defined? You know, if you had to put it in one word, we have a culture of what in our organization? And if you can define that culture, then you start then making intentional decisions about things and the direction that you want that to go, right? So that your decisions are based on that culture, on that mission, on that vision. Did a clarifying question come through? Okay.
Yeah, the clarifying was, how do we reach out to your existing customer to sell your new products?
Well, we're not exactly touching on that right now. I'm not a sales guru. I think that there are a lot of techniques, but again, I would suggest maybe getting a mentor through SCORE who has the subject matter expertise in that selling. Because honestly, that's not my area of expertise. So I can't tell you about that. I don't know if you have something, Tracy, from your marketing experience.
In the fourth workshop that we're doing in this series, we're going to touch on that part of your team being solution oriented. Because when you are solving problems for your customers all the time, this is an easy segue. So we're going to open up a little conversation and dialogue around that. So I'm not sure. I don't know how to say your name, and I know I'm going to totally mess it up. So G2, like, however you say your name, please correct me. And I apologize that I'm not the best at names. So if you have any further questions specifically, reach out and definitely get a mentor at SCORE, because there are so many great mentors that are really, really focused on selling.
Yeah.
And we're going to touch on it from a solution oriented piece in our fourth workshop of the series.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you, Tracy.
Absolutely.
All right, let's keep going here. Again, here's some outcomes, right? Some outcomes. When we talk about culture and what have you. So let me move this out of my way here. So when we talk about outcomes of supportive environments on individuals, and this is on the folks within your organization, this is for the customers and the clients that you serve, right? And as you can see, it is constantly in that cycle, right? So, when you have a supportive environment, it creates a supportive culture and society. One's identity is affirmed by others or circumstances when surrounded by a conducive environment. Intelligence happens, happiness, health and kindness within the society. And with the positive effects of identity affirmation, the culture becomes one with more positive contributions from individuals, right? And you also create processes by which, when there does arise some conflict, because we know that's inevitable, right? When there does arise some type of a conflict, or there is something that we're not agreeing on, or we don't agree on, the direction of this or that, we can have productive conversations in which everyone can be heard and they still feel like they are being heard. It affirms their identity, their intelligence. They can, like I say, sometimes you just agree to disagree, but people want to be heard, right? So again, supportive environments really help to move your business forward. And so you have to think about, are you being supportive? And if so, how are you being supportive? And what are some other ways that you can be even more supportive, right? We're constantly looking at evolving that and changing that. And what are some other things that we can do? And if you don't know, ask your team. Ask your clients, ask the folks that matter, because we may think we're doing a fantastic job and we may get a great idea from somebody else. Boy, I really wish you did this, or you know what would make this perfect if you did that, right? And so we need to be taking those moments and thinking about how we can tweak and tune what we do so that people feel heard, because when they feel heard and you make those changes, they feel empowered and they trust you, right? All right. So, top 8 leadership styles. I'm going to stop this share for just a second, because I just have a little video that I want to share with you that is around leadership styles, right? So give me just one moment and I'm going to get that up for us. All right. And I'm just going to share. Where is my, here we are. And make sure that you can hear. All right. Okay, can everybody see
Hi, everybody,
that?
and welcome. My name is Jen, and I'm a career coach at Indeed with over 10 years of career services experience. I've personally worked with hundreds of job seekers in a variety of different roles, from individual contributors to CEOs. Today, I'm going to share 8 common leadership styles, their benefits and challenges, and signs that one might be your natural style. At the end of the video, I'll share a strategy to help you decide which leadership style is best suited for you. Different situations may have different needs, so it's important to know when a specific style might work best. Let's begin with our first common leadership style, coach. A coaching leader quickly recognizes the strengths, weaknesses, and motivations of others to help them improve. They often assist in setting goals and provide regular feedback with challenging projects to promote growth. Coaching leaders are skilled in setting clear expectations and creating positive, motivating environments. The coach leadership style is one of the most advantageous for employers as well as the employees they lead. Unfortunately, it's often one of the most underutilized styles, mostly because it can be more time-intensive than other types of leadership. Coaching leadership might be a natural style for you if you're supportive, offer guidance instead of giving commands, value learning as a way of growing, ask guided questions, and balance relaying knowledge with helping others find it for themselves. Coaching leadership is positive in nature. It promotes the development of new skills, free thinking, empowerment, it revisits company objectives, and fosters a confident company culture. Leaders who coach are often seen as valuable mentors. While this style does have many advantages, it can also be more time-consuming as it requires one-on-one time with employees. This can sometimes be difficult to obtain in fast-paced environments when you have time-sensitive priorities. An example of coaching leadership style in the workplace is to mentor someone who is interested in your role or area of business. You assess what they know and where their gaps of knowledge are. Then recommend readings, videos, or courses they can take to learn more. Set up a follow-up meeting and discuss what they've learned, assess the knowledge gained, and determine new areas to work on. You can also send interesting articles or resources to them as they come up. And don't forget to congratulate them periodically on their progress. For more information on coaching leadership and when to use this style, be sure to check out this career guide article. Now, if you find that you naturally lead through inspiration and confidence, you might be a visionary leader. Visionary leaders have a strong ability to drive progress and change. They inspire employees and earn trust for new ideas. They are also able to establish a strong organizational bond.
Did we freeze?
It looks like it did freeze, and I don't have the ability to unfreeze.
Okay, and I think we lost. Yes, we did.
Oh, did we lose?
We lost Karen.
Okay.
See, she'll I'm sure come back in. Meantime, we can entertain. Here comes Karen.
I was like, I'll pull up the slides. I've got them, but I don't have the video. She's coming back on right now, isn't she?
It looks like it gave me the boot.
It's frozen.
Yeah, so the video froze.
Okay. Well, what we can do is we can send out a link to the video for folks, and we won't try to go back there because I don't want it to keep kicking us out. But we can certainly provide a link to the video so that folks can be able to get some sense. It's really a quick video.
Yeah, we can definitely send it out with the materials that we send out after the workshop is finished.
Yes. And I'll make sure you have that link, Bob. So I'm just going to go ahead and we'll get back to our presentation. And then it was just a way for folks to be able to give some consideration to what their leadership style was. I just don't, because of time, I don't want to risk us going back and doing that again, but we will send the link out. And Bob, there was a question about if the entire workshop would be, oh yeah, I got it. Tracy, you answered. Thank you so much. All right, so let me get back to our presentation.
We'll also have a recording of this. So this recording will be available along with the slides.
Yes. All right. Let me get us back to where we were.
So then everyone will have to follow up with us next week. Watch that video and then tell us on next week's webinar what you think your style is, because it'll be really interesting to see what everyone rates themselves.
Absolutely. Because that's where you start, right? That's where everything starts, is how do you see yourself, but also get some feedback as far as how do others see you, those folks within your organization, right? All right, let me turn my camera back on here. All right. So why is leadership, let's see here. All right, so leaders show employees how to embody the values that contribute to organizational culture. It is the duty of the leader to communicate the company's mission, goals, and core values. Leaders are responsible for defining, teaching, measuring, and rewarding the culture they want to foster. And this is very important because when we're talking about, like, if this is your business, you have to know what your goals are. You have to know what is the mission, what is the vision of your organization, who are your clients, what are you ultimately trying to do? And you have to be able to communicate that so that everybody within your organization knows that and understands it, right? You want to find a way to measure how folks are doing. You have to be able to provide them some solid feedback based on some solid metrics, right? You have to be able to have real ways to be able to measure their progress there, and whether it be through sales or whatever, there's a million metrics that you can put into place, but they should be in alignment with what you expect. And folks should be able to look at it at a glance and know how they're doing, right? And those are the ways that you foster the culture. Okay, Tracy, did you have anything to add?
I absolutely agree.
Sorry, I was trying to get myself off mute. I'm here. Okay. So how leadership affects organizational culture. Basically, managers can teach organizational culture through social interactions, how they interact with other folks. Through their own actions, leaders show employees what behavior is accepted and encouraged. And so here are 7 ways that leadership affects organizational culture. It defines and teaches the core values. It fosters a desire to learn, promotes a culture of recognition, and not just the leader saying, hey, good job, but you put a system in place which peers can say thank you, which peers can say, hey, great job, which peers can recognize their colleagues for something that they did that helped them to get done what they needed to do, right? You put that sort of recognition in place. They're not just waiting on a pat on the back from you, but they are able to do that with each other. But it also is important that they hear it from you, right? It encourages a shared vision, changes the culture. It improves job satisfaction, not just for the employees, but for you too. And it also ensures accountability, right? This quote here says, you are what you constantly do, which makes excellence not an act, but a habit, right? You want to get into the habit. That culture has to be a habit. Motivating your folks has to be a habit. Teaching them and making sure that the alignment is there between the culture and the behavior and the expectations, right? You want to make sure all of that is there and ready. And you want to be able to recognize it when it is, and you also want to be able to address it when it isn't. And so now we're at the point where we're just kind of wrap things up, right? So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing. And what I'd like for everybody to do is to, in the chat, tell us your one takeaway from this entire presentation, the one thing that you understand that you didn't understand before, that you'll implement that wasn't implemented before. Tell us one thing that you're going to take away and that you're going to use to improve your business. And we'll give you some time to do that.
I'm going to share something that I absolutely loved and learned, if that's okay, while everyone's in the chat.
I would love for you to do that.
I loved what you quoted. I think it was your grandmother. Reality is one thing, perception is everything.
Yeah.
That is very memorable. And that is so true in all areas of business, family life, community. So that I'm writing that down. I love it.
Okay. Yeah, that was my mom. My mom used to say that all the time. Yeah,
Oh,
my
your mom,
mom.
I love it.
Yep, she
So
used to say that all the time. And, at the time she gave me that tidbit, I didn't understand it, not fully, right? But as I began to grow and work on myself as a leader, I overstood it. You know what I mean? Yeah. All right. Shared vision is pivotal to leadership. Right. Seriously, I can't name one. It's everything. Oh, how sweet, Kelly. I'm going to use the slides to create my company culture. Okay. And that's fine. But it's also more than about the slides, right? When you're talking about creating that company culture, you have to take a little deeper dive. This is just a grand overview to help you kind of understand what we mean when we say culture. But you have to definitely do more than take the slides. You have to define what the culture is that you want to see within your organization. And then you have to figure out what are the things that need to be in place in order for that culture to show up that way. And what do you need to do to help get that message out to the people? And so that people walking in can understand it, right? This is a work. You can't change culture overnight. You can't create culture overnight. It is intentional work, and you may want to get some additional support. You may want to look at getting some type of a coach. You may want to look at getting a mentor, and there's nothing wrong with getting a SCORE mentor, but then also seeking help, some specific help also outside of SCORE, where you may be able to use all of that information and all of those skills, right? Sometimes that's the option as well. What else do we have in the chat, Tracy? Let's see.
Irma said that she's going to seek to improve her people skills. And
okay.
That, I love that. That is like never ending constant improvement. That is like, a skill for life. So excited that has brought awareness for you, Irma.
Right. And kudos to Irma for recognizing and being self-reflective enough to say, you know what, I might need some assistance in that area, right? So kudos to you for that, Irma. I really do applaud you for that, right?
And then Philomena talked about shared vision is pivotal to leadership.
Kelly. Mm-hmm.
I think that's so exciting because like really sharing your vision and really having, like Bob just put, transparency is going to be amazing as you grow. And Kelly, thank you for saying that there were so many things as your takeaway. It'll be really exciting to hear when you share this with your team as you're building it out, how that culture is set with your new business. So that's really exciting.
That's right.
And then Lisa talked about communication.
Absolutely.
Amen to that. That's like,
right.
We're all working on that forever.
Absolutely. So very good. Thank you all for sharing those. Additionally, let me just also say to you that this is just the first night of the series. Next week, we will be talking about understanding your why. And that will help maybe give you all some more insight into some of the things that we were talking about, right? Because that is going to build on this a little bit. It's a standalone. So if but it does definitely still builds on some of those ideas and understanding your why. Yes. Good old Simon Sinek. Absolutely. Right. But for you, not just for you personally, but for your business, for your organization. And I'll tell you, it's not even just Simon Sinek, but also Sean Covey. He created a course for college students, right? And he put forth a formula for what makes exceptionally or highly exceptional college students. And it's based on the 7 principles of highly effective people that his dad established right from the beginning, but he'd adapted it. And one of the parts of that formula is having a compelling why, right? Now, that may sound like, well, what's the difference? Well, there's a difference in having a why and having a compelling why. And that's what we're going to get into next week, because compelling changes the game when we're talking about or thinking about the why, right?
Yeah, compelling is key. And this keeps coming up probably because we're talking about leadership, but John C. Maxwell always says, if you are leading and you turn around and no one's behind you, then you're just taking a walk.
That's it.
When you're compelling, people will be with you. You'll be walking side by side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the whole point, right? You want to bring people with you, and even not necessarily even behind you. You want to be locked arm in arm with your people, because you all are working towards the same goal, creating a culture that makes people feel like they have a part in this, because they do. Without many of them, you couldn't have the same level of success, right? Because they're bringing their effort, their energy, their word of mouth, their sphere of influence. The people that can be influenced by you, or by them, also can become your customers and your clients. So all of it matters. All of it matters. And so how we show up for folks, matters. So this session is scheduled to end at 9. We're good here at 8:30. At this point, I just want to open it up for any questions that you may have. If not, we won't hold you. We're not going to just hang around for the sake of hanging around, but we definitely wanted to leave time for you to be able to ask questions. And so please, in the chat, if you have anything. If not, we'll just hang out here for a bit and be able to answer some questions for you. And then otherwise, we will see you same time, same sandbox next week, next Wednesday, 7 to 9, where we will be talking about understanding your why. Oh, you are so much welcome. It's our pleasure, our pleasure, our pleasure.
Aaron and Tracy, I can't thank you enough. You guys have done a fabulous job. Everybody on the call is excited, and I think next week's going to be a wonderful experience for everybody. I hope to see you all next week.
Yeah, fantastic.
We just had a question come through.
Go for it.
So besides team meetings, what are some other ways to get communication across a team? With the bar and dog park, it's difficult to get all staff together all at once.
Right. So that's some time where you have to be creative, right? You have to be creative, and you also have to be willing to sometimes dedicate, even if it's once a quarter, right? You dedicate maybe a half day and call it staff development, right? In which you have not just a place to give a bunch of information, but have some fun, interactive team building things to do. You have to be willing to give up just a little bit of time where everybody's invited, everybody's, going to get paid, but you have to create those opportunities for folks to come together, because that's how you foster that team development. There are other ways also, that you can do that. And I'm going to open it up to anybody that's on the call. What are some ways in which you create communication with your team members? Let's hear from everybody.
So, Lisa, I would ask you, how many people are on your team? Are they all over? Because sometimes playing with fun socials, like the dog thing is so fun to me.
It sounds fun.
Maybe you do something where all the team members post in a private Facebook group, like some kind of, hey, this is what Fido did today. This is what Rover did. And it's just starting the conversation of what the day in the life of each team member. That's like a fun way to start communication and then build from there. Maybe it's like, I always say that my real job was herding cats. I didn't know. I didn't sign up to be a cat herder. But when you're managing creative people, it just
right.
So sometimes, like the whole thing with dogs, like it could be really funny to do some fun communication. Like you can talk about people's different leadership styles as compared to the dog. I mean, you guys can have a lot of fun with your team that way.
Right.
So that's what I would just say off the cuff.
Yeah, that sounds fun. And I would also say never underestimate the value of just asking your team. Just asking your team, how do you all think would be some good, or what are some good ways that you feel we can improve our communication? What are some ideas that you would like to see? I like to do with my teams that I manage, I do a keep, start, stop, right? What are some things we should keep doing? What are some things that I should stop doing, or we should stop doing collectively? And what are some things you think we should start doing, right? That you can put that out to anyone, and then, or have one-on-ones with those team members as they come in to talk about that. Let's have a conversation. Maybe it's a 15-minute conversation, right? Or maybe it's a half an hour that I devote to whoever's on staff. Like, let's just have that conversation, right? Or you have extra staff that day, or one extra person they can kind of fill in to have some real conversations. Or you can do it in an email, or you can do it in a box. You can do it, right? Like establish an intranet of some sort. There are lots of ways that you can do that, but I would always say, start by asking your team, because they know what you need even better than any of us would know. And we can give you a million ideas, but they might still not fit in the culture of your organization, and your folks in the organization might not find them as helpful. They'll be like, where did you get this idea from, Lisa? So there's no harm in asking them and going from there and getting some help to kind of build those things out, right? Then you give your employees the opportunity to share their thoughts and help you build something together that they will have more buy-in to.
So I'm going to read the question from Kelly. She said, from your experience, what are some of the things that American employees actually like and seek in a positive company culture?
Well, to be honest, in my experience, it differs, because people always think that it's money, and it's not. You have to know your team members enough to find out what motivates them. Some folks have very intrinsic motivation, like they don't need anything. I'm just so happy that I was able to contribute to the team. Others are motivated in different ways. There is no cookie cutter answer, because people are motivated differently, right? Some want more time. An extra day off with pay would be fantastic, or just an extra day off. Sometimes they don't even care about the pay, right? I used to manage in call centers. When I would do monitoring, I used to do it pen and paper, and I would put a sticker on those that really did fantastic, right? You would not believe how stickers motivated people, and they were so excited and very upset when I ran out of them. All motivation doesn't have to be these great grand gestures, right? You can ask people, get to know them, what they're motivated by, what do they like, get little trinkets, or have theme days where they have input, you know what I mean? And they can share something that they love. What are some things they do outside of work? Those are just a lot of very different things, right?
So, Kelly, I think that you're right on the money with the fuzzy money, because there's lots of different things. One of our teams at one time, like, it was about asking, like, what is empowering? What do you find inspiring? We would do where if everybody was on time, didn't call off, they took vacation days, but no call offs, on time, you would get a bonus day where we would pay you, but you would go to a charitable organization and do a give back day. I never would have come up with that on my own, right? Like, it was from asking. So I think that there's probably a lot more similarities between the US and Australia, but no matter where your business is, asking the team you put together, and it's going to change too, because especially if you have a lot of women on your team. Women start out like at different age groups having different needs and things based on when they start having families and things going on. So it's not even just asking once, it's asking all the time.
That's right. Any other questions or comments? Bob, do you have anything you'd like to lend to the discussion? Any thoughts?
Oh, well, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for considering me. I've worked with teams. I have managed the SCORE team for a long, long time. And we do ask people all the time, and we try to give people an opportunity to chime in, and we try to get people together on a regular basis, if nothing else, just to say hello and discuss what's going on within the organization. Now, SCORE is a volunteer organization, so it's a little bit different, and people are motivated differently, but nonetheless, you still need to use the leadership skills that you have to make a team like this work. And fortunately, thank goodness, it's working really well. And all of SCORE is a national organization, so there are another 10,000 volunteers out there besides the 80 or 90 that are here in Cleveland. SCORE on a national level does a great job keeping people interested and tuning in to what motivates them and making them work. And again, working with volunteers is entirely different. You don't have money or fear to use as motivation.
Very good. Thank you, Bob. Very valuable insight and input. Right. Anything else in the chat?
Callie is just sharing that she's going to use the valuable information, and I just
Good.
can't wait to hear. Yeah, and someone just gave the idea of employee outings. There's something about breaking bread with people that you get to know them better. I think it's important to set a culture that way.
And you know what? And it doesn't have to, like, you can always, if you're in a position to cater an event for them, that's fantastic. If you're in a position where things are a little more lean, or you're not able to just do that, you can have everybody bring something in a picnic basket, and you can meet in a park. You reserve the park, or you reserve the space, or however you go about it where you live, you know what I mean? And just meet there, and everybody come and bring their favorite something to share, right? And it just creates that culture, right? And it creates an opportunity for everybody to feel like they belong, right? And that they are also adding value to the team. People they don't mind contributing. Some people you will find are fantastic cooks or bakers or whatever the case may be, and they want to share, you know? Yes, Kelly, please keep us posted, ma'am. Keep us posted. All right, fantastic. So Bob is going to make sure that everyone that is registered for this webinar through SCORE gets a copy of the PowerPoint, the link to the video, and our contact information as well if you want to follow up. And he's going to make sure that you also have a way to be able to get in touch with a SCORE volunteer or mentor as well. How do I do that, i.e. contact?
Are we talking specifically for a SCORE mentor? I did put it in the chat earlier on, but that said, score.org/Cleveland, and there's a tab for finding a mentor.
Oh,
it's pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah, she wants to know, how does she keep us posted? Email us.
Yeah.
Email us, definitely. And join us next week. And let us know how you're starting and how we can help support.
Just if I could, just a quick thing. SCORE will be doing a networking event for our clients, and that is going to come up in September 12th. The advertising and marketing for that will start shortly, and anybody that's on our list, and I assume you all are if you're here, will get announcements for that. So look forward to seeing you there. I think we'll have about 200. We'll be serving some food that night. It's like from 5 till 7. We will also have tables for people that have either products or services that they want to talk about, that they can actually, work with people that are in the room. So, nice. And before that, we will be having workshops on how to work networking events, and both during and prior and after.
Nice.
That's exciting. I was just going to ask if it's in person, and it is. So that's wonderful.
It is in person.
I'm excited about that.
Yep.
Very good. Kelly wants to know if you can make it online as well. It may have to be a separate online networking event.
Yeah, and the workshops that we do will be online. And we're actually doing 2. One is how to prepare, and the other one is, how to do your best pitch.
Yeah, and have we done any online networking events, Bob?
Have not.
Okay.
Yeah,
They're
it's
fun.
it's something, I'd like to do it as roundtables where you get, few people in the room and actually have the ability to exchange conversations, a little bit kind of like what we did tonight, but
Mhm.
even more so, where people are actually participating as if in a meeting.
Okay.
I think they're really helpful to get business owners to speak their message, right?
Mhm.
Like, I think it's really helpful to do some virtual networking
Mhm.
events. That'd be
Agreed.
really fun.
Right.
Agreed.
And the beautiful thing about SCORE is that you have some people and volunteers and folks that would jump right on that, and they have some experience in facilitating that. And so thank you so much for the suggestion, Kelly. It's something that we'll take back under advisement. And Bob, he is the man with the plan. He knows the right people to get in touch with to try to see how we can make that happen.
Excellent. Great. Anything else before we take off for the night? Like we're there.
All right. Fantastic.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you next week. Same
Take
time,
care, all.
same sandbox.